Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's Wednesday webinar. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to connect here, but while we wait, I'll share a little bit about the Kentucky Small Business Development Center, or the Kentucky SBDC for short, as we fondly call ourselves. The Kentucky SBDC has been assisting the Commonwealth small business community for more than 35 years with 13 service centers statewide to provide assistance to all 120 Kentucky counties. Our experienced and knowledgeable staff provides unparalleled consulting and training services that help existing business owners and potential entrepreneurs succeed. We provide no-cost assistance in areas such as market research, opportunity assessments and feasibility studies, business plan development and execution, financial modeling and projections, identifying pre-venture and growth capital that fits your needs, and loan packaging. To request help, please call us at 1-888-475-7232, or you can email us at info@ksbdc.org or visit KentuckyBizHelp.com. In addition, you can connect with us socially via Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Kentucky SBDC on each of these platforms to connect. The Kentucky SBDC is co-sponsored by the U.S. Small Business Administration and is administered by the University of Kentucky in partnership with regional universities, community colleges, and the private sector. We are part of a national network, America's Small Business Development Centers, which serves the entire United States. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you, so that if you have trouble with the audio or need to step away, please know that we'll send you the link for later viewing, and please view often. So what we're going to talk about today is some very timely topics of a lot of the HR questions that we have by working from home. So with us today we have Jennifer Wheatley and Amy Old. And also, as everyone's working from home, security and security with your workforce and your team has become very important. We've all heard the news about some security issues with some of the software platforms that we're using. And today we also have with us Dave Christopher, IT expert and cybersecurity expert, kind of help us out with that. Also joining me today is Tony Sears, who's also here on staff at the Louisville Small Business Development Center, and I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the center director here in Louisville. And so our format today will be, as always, we'll kind of deliver some content to you, and then we'll open up for questions, and we'll take whatever questions you have. We'll try to find out, give you the right answers, and then if we don't know the answers, we'll certainly find out and get back to you on that at a later date. So to ask a question, please use the chat function you'll see there on your screen. And again, hopefully we'll have a lot of questions, so we'll try to answer some of the questions during the chat function, or we'll answer the questions while we're online live. So just if you have any questions, put them in the chat function. Kind of keep the actual chit chat to a minimum, because we do get a lot of questions, and we need the space to be able to read those questions. So with that, I'm going to allow Jennifer and Amy to introduce themselves a little bit, and then we'll go to Dave. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Wheatley, and I am the president of HR Affiliates. HR Affiliates is a full-service HR consulting and outsourcing firm, and we primarily work with small to medium-sized businesses to provide all of their HR needs. And as you can imagine, we have been spending all of our time the last several weeks handling all of the questions and issues that are surrounding all of this pandemic. So we've became quite inundated, and we've been really engaged with all of this. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to provide you guys with some good information from our experience. I will say that, you know, we don't have all the answers, but I think we have a lot of the answers. But no, just understand that everything is new and changing tremendously. So as what we're going to talk about today is as we know it today. So Amy Old will be doing most of the talking, and I'll let her introduce herself, but she has become kind of our point person for all things related to COVID-19. Amy?
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm also with HR Affiliates. I have around 20 years experience in HR. and about 3 to 4 weeks experience with COVID-19. So, but as Jennifer said, we've been inundated with tons of questions, great questions, lots of really good questions, and we hope to hear some more today. I just plan on giving you some overview information to perhaps pique some questions in your mind. There are no dumb questions. This is all unprecedented, and everyone is uncertain. So we're just answering those as best we can based upon, we've done thorough reviews of the Department of Labor guidance for all of these things, and we are keeping on top of it daily. So as Dave said, and Jennifer said, if we don't know the answer today, we will be sure to keep it on our radar or provide an answer later.
Thanks, Amy. Dave, you there? Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was there. Yeah. Hey, so my name is Dave Chris. I'm the executive director and founder of the Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development, and we do technology training for adults, predominantly the West Louisville, trying to get them prepared for jobs in the technology field. I've got about 30 plus years in IT. In cybersecurity and such, and so worked in UPS and different places. I've actually left there to start my own company back in 2002, and ran that for a period of time before I left to run my nonprofit full time. So I look forward to sharing some information. Like we just said before, we've kind of talked about. It's a really different environment. A lot of things we don't think about, and actually really a good time to set ourselves up for when this is done. Because some of the things that I'll discuss in terms of security are some things that we probably should have been doing, well, we definitely should have been doing already to be more safe and more secure. And now this COVID-19 has kind of made us aware of how difficult that is to keep your information as your information. So hopefully you guys will learn something from it, and I look forward to sharing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Amy, you want to go ahead and
Yes.
pull your slides up and get started?
All right. Hopefully everyone can see this slide. Really, we know that we don't have a ton of time to provide you with direct information. What we're really looking forward to are all the questions. So, but we did want to provide a basic overview of what our government and the guidance our government and how our government has reacted so far with legislation concerning COVID-19. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the FFCRA, or the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was the first piece of legislation to come out of Washington. The second one, the CARES Act overview. Primarily, I'm going to talk about the unemployment piece, which has been the hot topic this week, definitely, and at the end of last week. And we're still learning more about how all that works, but we'll give a little bit of guidance and what we know at this point. And then we wanted to touch on working from home. We don't know everyone's circumstances, but I do know many of our clients have started to move that can to a work from home model. And with that, this is kind of, if you've not done it before, it's unknown territory. So we wanted to provide you with some things to think about. Because not only are we working from home, but we're working from home, probably a lot of people have been shoved into it suddenly. We're kind of figuring out things as they go along, and in the middle of all of this uncertainty from the outside world. So we just wanted to provide some tips on that. So a brief overview of the Families First Coronavirus Act, the FFCRA. The first piece of it, as I'm sure you all know, is an FMLA expansion. One of the pieces that we've had to kind of reiterate, it's a lot of language and it's kind of hard to understand at first, the delineation between the FMLA expansion and the paid sick leave. The FMLA expansion itself is a standalone piece, and it only involves childcare needs due to COVID-19 related issues. So the FMLA expansion is not for somebody else. If someone is sick or they're caring for other people with COVID-19, that could fall into your regular FMLA. But this emergency expansion that sunsets at the end of the year on December 31st is purely for childcare purposes only. It is a paid leave. The FMLA piece itself has a 10-day waiting period that the employee can choose to use their PTO or vacation or sick time during that 10-day period. And on the 11th day, per the emergency FMLA expansion, that's when the 2/3 pay kicks in up to 10 weeks. Then we have the paid sick leave. So the paid sick leave is for COVID-19 issues only. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of questions. We're getting a lot of questions such as, my employees scared to come into work. That they think that they're going to contract the virus. My employee knows someone who knows someone who knows that their coworker has, lives with someone with COVID-19, all those types of questions. What this paid sick leave is for specifically is if you have been told to quarantine or your employee's been told to quarantine specifically by your state, local, federal agency, government agency. If they've been told to quarantine, they're eligible up to 80 hours at full pay for sick leave. It's also if someone is trying to seek treatment, they believe that they have symptoms, believe that they may have the virus, and they are seeking treatment underneath for COVID-19, and that would qualify them for paid sick leave underneath the Act. The final one is to care for a family member who's been diagnosed with COVID. They are allowed up to 80 hours of sick leave for that. The other piece does involve childcare, and this is where there has been some confusion, I think, because of the way it's worded. But you are eligible if your childcare provider, you no longer have access to that provider due to a COVID-19 related issue, whether the business was ordered to close down, like here in Kentucky, or if it was a caregiver, a grandmother, someone who you don't want to expose. If you lose that access to childcare, you are eligible for a paid sick leave, 80 hours, but only at 2/3 of pay. The way that the two pieces marry is that you can use that 2 weeks of paid sick leave for childcare at 2/3 to fill in that 2-week gap that they left in the FMLA expansion piece. And I'm sure you'll have some questions on that. I hope to hear some questions on that, but I think that that's an important distinction. They presented them as separate pieces, but they actually can work in conjunction with one another. So I thought that was an important distinction. The CARES Act, which is was the last piece of legislation, has a lot of different pieces in it. Some of them are HR related, some of them are not. I know the small business loan is a big thing that everyone's talking about. Certainly a lot of our clients have been asking a lot of questions, but I thought I'd take my time today to kind of go over the unemployment piece. We are, since this all started, as people have been furloughed or not able to work, people started to file unemployment. You all have seen the numbers from a nation perspective. Even it has been pretty incredible. The CARES Act provides, I'm sure everyone has heard of the extra $600 a week. So here's what we know and what we don't know. The extra $600 a week will be provided separately by the federal government. So if they qualify for state benefits, then they also qualify for the $600 benefits. What we don't know is how that is triggered and when that payment is going to begin. So we are looking every day. I go out there and search, and that's the first thing that I check when I get to my computer in the morning is, has there been any guidance on this? Because so many people have asked about that. The three pieces of language, the 3 bullet points I have up there, because there are actually 3 pieces under the CARES Act that talk about unemployment. The pandemic unemployment compensation piece, that is that additional $600. So if you hear someone say PUC, they're talking about that additional $600 per week. It is a flat amount, and it is going to be weekly. And that's going to be paid through July 31st. What I've seen so far is it looks like it will be retroactive up to the date when the legislation passed, which I believe was March 27th I'd have to double check that. But that's what we know about that so far. But there was also a pandemic emergency unemployment compensation piece to that. And that is the piece that adds the additional 13 weeks of unemployment benefits through the state. That is federally funded though. So employers, that money you will not see that money come out of your own accounts. It also waived in the majority of states the waiting period that typically is there. Like in Kentucky, there's the week waiting period that was waived. The final one is the pandemic unemployment assistance. This is the one that involves your small business owners, your contractors, people that typically would not be eligible for unemployment are now eligible underneath the PUA. So if you hear someone refer to that, that is what that piece means. So finally, we just kind of wanted to get you all thinking, if you haven't already, in the middle of all this craziness, is if you have a remote team, how do you manage your team remotely? And we at HR Affiliates, we're going through the same challenge. We are trying to think, how do we stay connected? How do we make sure that the employees are taken care of? You want to think of productivity. But you also want to be realistic. So it's really important to define those expectations. You may not know what those are right now, but that's definitely, since the dust is starting to settle a little bit on some of this, to think about your remote workforce and make sure that they understand, what are the work hours, what's expected of them as response time. Do they have the resources that they need? That would be a good a check-in piece. Does everyone have the equipment that they need? Over communicate is so important because these, we're so used to, it's interesting, my own experience, you're so used to just being able to get up and, walk across the hallway and ask, I could go ask Jennifer a question. People are right there. You're able to get that information, but now you kind of got people on their own islands, at home working. So don't ever assume that, someone knows something and probably what your staff really wants to know is, how is the business doing? What are kind of the updates? So if you're managing small teams, I always, at the very least, I recommend checking in at least weekly. If you can do it over something like Zoom or whatever our next speaker recommends from a security perspective, it's really great to be able to see faces and people enjoy that. This is a time of uncertainty. Everyone is uncertain about everything, what we do know, what we don't know, but we want to make sure that we build trust, especially for organizations where people that are working from home isn't the norm. There are some people that, get nervous. Are they really going to be working? Are they going to be doing laundry? Are they going to be napping? Are they really working? So make sure that you're working on building that trust, and that goes both ways. And be available as much as possible. If, like Jennifer and myself have been pretty much 24/7 on the COVID situation and updating our clients and partners on this information, but just make sure that you're, whatever your new normal is, that you are available to your staff, even if it is at a certain period once a day, or every other day. And if you cannot be available, what other resource could they use? So that's very important. So those were the pieces that we just kind of wanted to touch on. This is mostly going to be, I know, a Q&A session, but these were just the things that we wanted to make sure that you were aware of and that you were thinking about, and hopefully prompt some good questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. Yeah, we've got a bunch of good questions popping up on some of these things, so be prepared. We'll move on to Dave here. So Dave, you all set?
I am ready. Let me get the slides started.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jennifer. That was an excellent presentation. Appreciate that. So one of the things we actually talked about just prior to us going on with everybody else, and I want to just point this out, even though we can't see the people that are listening to this webinar or watching this webinar, one of the things I pointed out was that be aware of what's in your background. So when you're doing in this age of video conferencing, so just be aware of, so I just want to say that right off the top, be aware of what's in your background, any personal information, stuff that, you know, you're okay with, but you just don't want to share with the world. We've had some really odd things happen on video conferences where, you know, people you kind of lose track of the fact that you're on the screen. And in one video I saw that went viral actually was a young lady doing something very personal while on the screen, not remembering that she's on the screen. So just be aware of that. So working securely from home, COVID-19, preparing you and your employees to work securely from home in remote locations. This is a whole different thing now. I mean, it's, you know, some of us have probably, you know, taken a day off before and we've, you know, worked from home and that. And so that was a short period of time. But this is what is our new normal for at least you know, a while. So we need to get ready for this. The other thing about what we're going to go over is this is probably stuff that you should have been talking about already, and it should have been part of what you do in your daily life as far as your workplace. And this is not just remotely, but also what you should do at your office when you do finally get back to your office. First of all, I want to point out that you should provide as much information to your employees about the basic security needs. Things about not, you know, like you hear about people all the time opening up emails that have viruses in them or phishing things in them. So just kind of making sure that you understand that, always make sure that you trust the person that's sending you that email, the email that you're opening is something. In a lot of cases, the sort of the rule is, if I didn't ask for it, then I shouldn't get it. So if something comes to you that you didn't send for, and it's an attachment, there is some software that you can load on your computer that will tell you if that's suspicious or not. But if you didn't ask for it, or if you question whether you got it and you should have gotten it, the best thing to do is get on the phone and call the person that sent it and ask them, did they send you something? It can change, it can solve you, it can leave you a world of, eliminate a world of trouble. The next thing is provide employees with virtual private networks. And what a virtual private network does is it hides your IP address so that IP address can't be tracked by hackers or different people, because what they'll do with your IP address is they can use your IP address to further their scam. So they can use your IP address to send out bulk mail or different solicitations and things, and people will think that stuff's coming from you because they trust you. And so you need to protect that, and that's what a VPN will do. Also, VPNs can encrypt your data. So the information that goes back and forth between you and other people on the internet or within your workforce is protected. It also masks your location, so people can't track where you are, right? That's just some of the things. And so there are VPN services. There's one company called Bitfinder. There's another group people are probably familiar with called Norton's. They have virtual private networks built in, so you can download that software, and that's included, and make sure you activate those. Some of the large organizations already have virtual private networks in place. If you don't, shop around. I don't want to recommend any specifically. I want you to do the research and find one. Don't go for free. Free is usually never the best way to go, because there's some catches to that. So just find a trusted network, pay the money, get the privacy. The next thing we're talking about is user security protection, virus protection, making sure that your firewall is on. So some folks will actually have computers that came from their office or laptops that came from their office they use at work. But probably the majority of folks will be asked to use their own personal computers to do the work. So in that case, you want to make sure that all the software, including your operating system, is it has security software on it, that the firewalls are turned on. There are YouTube tutorials that can tell you how to turn your firewall on your computer, and make sure that you have virus protection, and the virus protection and things are up to date. Do a password audit. Reset all of your passwords. If you went from work to home, you need to change your password. Everybody needs to change their password, and make sure, and I know passwords are sort of a sticky subject, like we got 1 million passwords for 1 million things. And so we tend to do stuff like, Fruity Dog is my password. Well, you think that that's unique, but it's not. It's not unique if somebody knows that you love fruit and you love dogs. I mean, I would say like that's, so you have to be really, and so here's some tips on like what you should do with your password. There's sometimes, a lot of times there's a password generator. And I don't know if anybody's ever used a password generator before, but it gives you the most craziest, most complicated password. But that's the best password to have. The other thing is what's called two-factor authentication. Anytime you log into a device that's not familiar, then it will actually ask you to send an email or a text message to your phone or to another device to verify that you are the one that's trying to sign on to that device. And then you get to choose whether that device is trusted or not. Now, it would make sense that if it's your device, you would say that it's trusted. But I'm going to suggest in these times, because it's really risky, is to go ahead and say not trusted, so that you have to get that password authentication, the two-factor authentication, every time you sign in. Because if you don't, then your password can be compromised. All right. Update all of your software to include your operating system. So, we don't like to take out the time to like, you'll see the update come up on your computer or the different software that you have, and you ignore it and you say, okay, you cancel it, do it later, whatever. You can set those updates to happen in the middle of the night or whatever, but you have to make sure they happen. And here's why. Usually when you get an update for your software or for your operating system, that says that they found a security breach in that software, or in that operating system. Hackers and folks that are trying to gain access to your information are watching those security updates. And they basically, what the security updates tell them is where the hole is. If you're not doing automatic updates on your equipment, on your software, and on your operating system, then as soon as a hacker, I see the updates that are going out, I'm going to start sweeping the internet to find out who didn't update their stuff yet. So set it on automatic, let it run, let it run through the middle of the night or whatever, but make sure you set it on automatic updates. Make sure that you check to make sure the updates took, because they're filling security holes, because hackers are constantly, and people that are trying to gain your information are constantly trying to find new ways in. And the truth is that they will. They'll find new ways, but to minimize your disruption in your business, you need to keep ahead. You need to stay one step ahead of them. So whenever you put it on automatic update, let it update. Use secure and approved cloud services. Anymore now, well, first of all, let me say this. Whether you're working on a company laptop or desktop, or whether you're working on your own personal, do not save information to your desktop. Most laptops now, most mobile devices now, don't even actually have, they have what are called static hard drives now. They're small, very small hard drives. They're really only intended to load your software. They're not there anymore like it used to be, where you store all this information. So you had like, terabytes of information, terabyte size hard drive, where it could hold all this information. That's not the case anymore. Those hard drives are small now because they expect that everybody's keeping their information in the cloud. And when we use cloud services, make sure that they're approved and secure cloud services, because there's a lot of people out there that say they'll store your data or keep your information, but do your research. Don't do a free service. Do a paid service, because there's more security that comes with that, to make sure that you're storing your information in the cloud. And if this happens that you have to download something on your computer, create a folder on your computer that you download all of this stuff to. And when you get done downloading and you get done working, delete that folder and make sure that that stuff is permanently deleted from your computer. All right. Next, reset Wi-Fi router name and password. You'd be surprised how many times I've gone into a place where the person's Wi-Fi router was the same username and password that the device came with. So Fruity Puffs password, Puffy1234 was actually their router name and password, and that is absolutely not secure, because you assume that something that is just for your router. They reuse those names for lots of routers. So it's been times where I went to somebody else's place and they had the same router name, and in some cases even the same password. I've even been able to get into people's computers just guessing at some of what I know are the default passwords that people use, that these devices have. So on your Wi-Fi router at home, make sure that you change the name of the router, and make sure you'll change it to a name that everybody in your neighborhood can recognize. It shouldn't be Christopher's Wi-Fi. It should be something that when the person sees it, they have no idea who it is or where it is. Then make sure the password, when we talked about passwords earlier, make sure that those passwords are strong enough. And here's the thing, is that you can change those passwords. You can put those passwords in a password manager somewhere safe, so that if you don't have, because you don't have to remember them. They can be as complicated as you need them to be, and you don't have to remember them. But make sure that they're extremely complicated, that they meet all the protocol, alphanumeric, they have a character in them, that there's something that's not common to what, like it shouldn't be your dog's name, it shouldn't be your spouse's name, those kinds of things. Stay away from that. Backup online, backup online, backup online. It is amazing how many times I've seen where people have had breaches in their security, and they had no online backup. And when you're talking about business, that is crucial, because if somebody does happen to find their way into your system and it causes your system to crash, or they lock it down with ransomware or anything like that, you're losing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a day, because you can't get back up and running. And so making sure that you back up your information often, every night, and there's different backups, there are incremental backups and differential backups. I'll let you decide which one you do, but the difference is that an incremental backup will back up everything that has changed since the last backup. A differential backup will change everything since the last full backup. So you should always do a full backup at least once a month, and then you can choose to do an incremental backup or a differential backup from that point forward. But make sure that you do a backup, because what can happen too is if someone, your computer may get infected long before you actually realize it's infected. And if you're just backing up one time, then the information that you now have on your computer has an infection, and when you back it up, you just backed up that infection. And when you try to recover from that backup, you've just loaded that back onto your computer. So having a differential backup, the way you can go back and you can see what changed and what files were added or whatever, and look for those suspicious backup, it helps IT professionals like myself to go in and see what's in there that shouldn't be in there. So that helps. Do not use thumb drives, flash drive, external drives. I know they're super convenient. You can go play them from place to place. And in a normal circumstance, that might be fine. But we're not in a normal circumstance right now. We're not in that place. And a thumb drive, a flash drive, or an external drive can be infected with a virus or tracking devices or anything like that. And so it's best to keep those, just do not use those. Like I said, put everything online in the cloud, and that's the best place for it. Use the mobility device management. So this is what the mobility device management is that if you have a large number of people that are working at home, then you want everything to be as uniform as possible in terms of security updates, checking for viruses, all those kinds of things. And with the mobility device management, you can, as your IT person or your tech person that's managing your systems, can do all of this at one time. And they can kind of keep track of, if you have the ability to keep track of all of your devices all at one time. So anytime any security updates need to go out, anytime any upgrades need to go out, if you're having a problem with your system and it needs to be checked or repaired, then that just saves a lot of time, a lot of trouble if you can get a mobility device management software, and then have somebody to manage that software. Have a contingency plan. So we talked about earlier about I had an example of one time I was working at a dental office, and they gave me a call, and they said that the computer was running slow. There was a problem with it. She didn't know what was going on. And as she was talking to me, her screen went black. And at the front office, there were like 3 computers to her right. As she was talking to me, her screen went black, came back up, and the computer next to her went black and came back up. And what was happening was the virus she had called me about originally that she didn't know she had was beginning to take over. And it was just making its way out throughout the computers, and it shut down the entire office of about 28 computers. So when we talk about having a contingency plan, letting people know what to do when they see even the smallest suspicious thing. If you're downloading something and it just takes a really long time to download, or you see a download begin that you didn't initiate, the best thing to do is to shut your computer off completely. Turn it off and call your IT person or whoever to find out what's going on. Because when you're working online and you're connected to other folks within your company, you can actually spread that to them. So having a contingency plan, letting your people know what to do in the case of any, and nothing is too suspicious. Like this is not that time where you go, oh well, I don't want to call anybody because I'm sure that's nothing. Maybe it's just my computer or whatever. This is not the time for that. What you have to do is whenever you see anything suspicious, the least bit suspicious, assume that it's a big deal. We spoke earlier about the issues with Zoom and how people were crashing Zoom calls. There's some things in Zoom that you can do to keep some of that from happening. It doesn't guarantee it, but it can keep some of that happening. For example, it gives you the option to enable a waiting room. So there's a checkbox you check to enable a waiting room, which means that nobody can enter the meeting room without you letting them in. Also, password, requiring that everybody puts a password in to get into the meeting. Those are some of those things. But the contingency plan includes all of those things, includes what you should do when you're setting up meetings, what you should do when you see something suspicious, who you should call, those kinds of things. So make sure that you have a contingency plan. And last, touching on the same thing that Amy and Jennifer talked about, support and show concern for your employees. This is scary. You have people working from home that have never probably worked remotely before, and you're trying to do all the work that you did before at your office and be as efficient as you were at your office, and it's tough. So don't be impatient with your employees, or don't just give them time to figure it out. I would even go so far as to say, writing up a document on how to use the tools that you're asking them to use remotely, how to use video conferencing, how to even how to share, doing meeting invites, those kinds of things that they, like you said, I can't walk across the hall and say, hey, Jennifer, can you meet me today in the conference room at 3? I can't do that. So some of the different things that you'll have to do, so there's different softwares you'll have to use now in this space that we live in right now. This is what you have to do. And as I said earlier, this should be something that once this is done, that you consider all these things and continue to use them even once you go back to work. So thank you guys. Look forward to the questions. And thank you, Dave and Tony for inviting me in to do this.
Thank you, Dave. That was pretty cool. Some of the things I didn't think of when you talked about earlier is the background, so I'm gonna think about that a little bit further. So Tony, do we have any questions we need to answer today?
Yes, we sure do. So this question is for Amy and/or Jennifer. Hi, Terry Lundberg. She, thank you for joining us. She says, I'm an essential healthcare provider. Can you speak to the exemption for PTO sick days for healthcare and first responders?
I actually don't have a lot of information on that right now. I mean, I know that it is out there, and I've read into it. And that is because the majority of our clients aren't involved in healthcare, but that can definitely be something that we can follow up on the Q&A and get back out. I have read through it. I've not had to address it frequently enough where I could speak off the top of my head. Jennifer, have you addressed that with anyone?
Jennifer, we can't hear.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
Sorry. Sorry.
I'm sure it was very, very intelligent what you were saying.
Dave, you can see my technology skills aren't very good. No, I haven't directly addressed that question, but I'm starting to see more and more information about it. So we'll take that down, Dave, and that'll be one thing that we can provide some more guidance around.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, what we'll be doing is we'll send you this this presentation tomorrow. We have all your contact info, so we'll download all your questions off the chat here. If we don't know the answer, we'll certainly email you what we know to everybody, so everybody's kind of up to speed on everything. So I'm going to ask a question here from Jeff Jewell, who was in a couple of our programs, and glad he's online today. So considering the FFCRA, he says this is only valid between April 1st and December 31st. And he says he has staff that has had to seek treatment prior to that date. Do you expect this to open up any, or as far as the prior to the April 1st start date?
Currently, because first they came out with the FFCRA, and then maybe a week later, the Department of Labor came out with its own guidance, kind of interpreting those holes. Questions just like that one. And currently the Department of Labor said that there will not be any retroactive period.
Okay.
So it's from April 1st on through the 31st.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy. I have a question from Jim Racklin. He says, young employees without work history to qualify for traditional unemployment insurance claim, how do they get their claim accepted after the system denies them their PUA application?
What we're seeing on this, and we'll definitely know more because we're starting to see the claims coming in from all of our clients, and then we're starting to get feedback because I've asked a lot of the employees, the people that have been furloughed or hours have been reduced, to give me feedback on their experience. But currently they're stating that if you're denied initially, don't worry about that they're still looking at that. That was on I believe the Kentucky Chamber website, and I saw some information as well. GLI has a lot of really good information on the unemployment. But I don't think that, I think that they need to wait and they'll get further guidance, because I don't believe that they are truly disqualified. I don't think the system has caught up with all of the new rules. So they're saying you may receive an initial disqualification, but that does not mean that you're actually disqualified, which isn't incredibly helpful, but we're going to start to see, what this looks like for people, because I've heard that I was denied. But everything that I've read so far and what we know today is that they're not truly denied.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually heard of a couple examples where they've actually said that they were denied and they've actually received their first payment.
Yeah. I got a question, and I have gotten this a lot. So regarding like independent contractors and self-employed who can now apply for unemployment insurance, what if they have some minimal amount of income still coming in? Can they still qualify for unemployment, or how does that work?
All they need to show for that piece is that their business or their business was disrupted by some COVID-19 related issue, and as long as there's been a reduction, kind of what I'm seeing across different states and definitely in Kentucky is there just has to be at least a 10% reduction for them to consider. Anything less than that, then they won't consider. So yes, I would go ahead and apply.
And then I had another question this morning. Just came up from somebody else. They said they applied and they checked their bank account today, and there was 2 payments of $300 in there, although they've got no notification from the state on what their status was. Just this money showed up. So is that normal?
I don't think that we can say that anything's normal right now. So that's not what that's not what I've been seeing. I've actually had people send over their documentation about their payment. But I guess I would have a question back. I'm not sure if they got confirmation on the amount that they were going to receive prior to getting that. So that's typically happening. If they didn't and it just showed up, I would assume it's their 2 weeks of benefits, and the system just hasn't caught up with that.
Okay, good. Tony?
Yes, you may have already said this, but I just wanted to make sure we got this question addressed. Andy Gupta says, I'm an employee of an S Corp that I'm also the manager of. Since the business is indefinitely closed now, can I apply for unemployment?
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Thank
you
you.
can apply for unemployment.
I got a question for Dave. You still there, Dave?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
So you mentioned a password generator earlier. So what happens if you forget the password for your password generator?
That's what the password manager's for. So there are places where you can securely you can put all your passwords in, and there's software on in your browser that will allow you to save those passwords securely online. And so, but you'll have to authenticate to get back into that. You'll have to get back into that area to get those passwords. And I would even go so far as to say that, because here's the thing is that if you write them down and lock them away in your house, that's not a bad thing. So, it's not like a, cyber criminal is going to break into your house to get your password out of your locked drawer to use it, right? So you can do that. You can actually write it down, lock it away somewhere secure so that you can go back to it if you forget it or when you need it.
Okay. So I got to follow on. You also mentioned about the online backup. Can you recommend a couple good online backup companies or software? And then do they do automatic backup? You mentioned the fractional and the full backup. Can you have that done automatically? And how many times can you back up during the course of the day?
So Acronis and Symantec are two companies that do backup services. There are others, and I would suggest that you go out and kind of research those. And so, yes, they do backup, and you set up the backup schedule as you want it to happen. So you can have it happen twice a day, once a day. You can set up the time for it to happen. You can set up the type of the backup it does. You can also set up exactly what you want it to back up, because you don't necessarily want it to back up your entire computer. You want it to back up essential files. And so that helps too, because a lot of times when you're backing up some of the files that are just inherent to your computer or your hard drive, you may be backing up files that you don't recognize. And that's where they exploit you, is that they'll put an operating system file in your backup that you don't recognize as being a problem, because it has a similar name or it looks official, whatever. So make sure that you're backing up only the files that are critical to you, that you need for your work.
And then one more little follow on there. So when you mentioned backup, this person says they use like OneDrive. Is that backup, or do you have to back up OneDrive with these other online?
OneDrive is a backup. OneDrive is a backup online backup service through Microsoft. So
okay.
Yeah, you can definitely use that. And I would just make sure that it has that encryption protocol and all those kinds of things on it. Because the other thing about backups is when they do the backups, you want the backups to be encrypted. So even if somebody gets a hold of the backup, they can't use it.
Okay. Tony?
Yes, I have another unemployment question. I'm a 1099 employee, and I see that I am getting the minimal amount. I have the opportunity to work minimally. When I report that, does it take from the amount I get from unemployment insurance? And is there a percentage that will make me unable to get any unemployment insurance for that week?
Okay, I'm going to try and break that apart. So that's an independent contractor that has reduced work. Am I understanding that correctly?
They get the minimal amount that you can get for unemployment insurance. And
Okay.
it says that they have the opportunity to work as well while they're getting unemployment insurance. And they said they can work minimally. But they want to know that if they actually report that, first of all, does that reduce the amount that they get from unemployment insurance for that week? And is there a percentage that will make them unable to get any unemployment insurance at all?
I would, and Jennifer, I'll be curious to hear your input, but I would think that yes, if you add wages when you report in, that may have the potential to reduce the benefit that they get. I've heard the 10% is the minimum, amount for reduction. If you've earned, that's kind of like the cap. So if you've been reduced less than 10%, then you're not going to be eligible. But also keep in mind that person will also be eligible for the additional $600 once that comes into play.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I got one from Will Cravens. How you doing, Will? He's an independent contractor. The OUI, the Office of Unemployment, sent him a PUI payment, and he wants to know whether he'll still get the PUC when that's made available. If his 2019 was sufficient to qualify.
Yes. Yeah. He will.
Good. Tony, you got one?
Actually, Dave, I've been getting a lot of questions on the CARES Act.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want me to start
Let's
posing those
one.
questions? Say
Sure.
it again.
Let's
Okay.
answer one.
Okay. Wait a minute, hold on. We just have one more that's on unemployment. Sorry. So this one says, this is a little off topic, but wondering about unemployment. Just received an unemployment deposit in my bank account. Wondering how often I will receive and if I have to reapply every 2 weeks.
You, I believe that they're paying out the benefits weekly, correct, Jennifer? Or is it biweekly?
I was thinking it was biweekly, but I'm pretty sure it was biweekly. But I do know that you don't have to reapply. You don't have to, during this COVID thing, you don't have to reapply. Unless your status changes. So in essence, if you got a job, something, then you'd have to report that.
Okay, thank you. David, Christopher, I don't know if you've already been asked this question, but if you use a password manager and the password continually changes, how does that affect the other people who need to access the same website who have access?
Yeah, a password manager will allow multiple people to use that password manager. So they'll know, and I'll say this is that for any system like that where where you're sharing a portal, if you will, that everybody should have a different password. People should not share passwords. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is to know who went in and out of the system, right, for that particular system, so that's accountability. The other thing is that it only requires me to get one access to that system. So it's a little bit more difficult to so if 10 people are working out of the same folder, and I pick the wrong person, I can't get their password, I have to go through and find somebody I can get in with. But if there's one password and everybody's using the same password, it's just that much easier. So you shouldn't, as best you can, everybody should have individual logins for whatever you're using.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question for IT Dave. That's what they're calling you, IT Dave.
Okay.
IT Dave. I have saved a lot of work I have saved a lot of my work in the PC drive. Will I have to resave all these documents in the cloud and then delete those previously saved in documents or downloads?
Yes. Yes. I mean, and I say, because here's the thing is that it seems tedious. It seems like it's a lot of work, but once it's done, it's done. You know what I'm saying? And then when you, from that point on, like, for example, on my computer, in my office at home, where I'm at now, right? Whenever I'm saving a document, I save it automatically to my Google Drive. Like I have a there are integration tools on your software. Like I use Adobe PDF, Google Sheets, and all those things. They have integration software that lets you just, as soon as you get done saving, you save it directly to the drive, as opposed to, and then the beauty of that is the access that you have anywhere you go. But yeah, you should, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I want to clarify, it does look like the benefits are paid out weekly in Kentucky.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I have another unemployment question. This is if 30 to 40% of my compensation is sales commission, but due to COVID-19, there will be zero sales for 2 to 3 months. Do I qualify for the additional federal unemployment?
I'll break that out into two parts. I believe, yeah, any reduction in wages would qualify you for unemployment, or absolutely. I'm telling everyone, even if you're in doubt, apply. Apply. Obviously, put down your accurate information and let them make that determination. There's so many variables and questions, so I just urge everyone, if you've had a reduction in your hours and your wages, no matter who you are, how you're paid, I would apply and just answer honestly, because you can't get in any trouble for that. The second piece, though, is I'm really curious to know, this is my question that I'll be looking for, and I think everyone wants to know, is what is going to trigger that $600 payment from the federal government? So where are they getting the information to then pay out? So are they, pulling it from state unemployment databases? I would assume. Are there any disqualifiers? We've not seen that. So the big question is, if you're denied by the state for whatever reason, do you still qualify for the federal $600? And that's the question of the week so far, and we do not know. But we should have some information. I would assume we'll probably start to see that in the next couple of weeks and have more information.
Okay. One last question on unemployment. Would a business who does pay themselves be eligible for unemployment?
So a business owner?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So wait a minute, Tony. I've got two unemployment questions from an employer standpoint. Number one, if in the past if your employees went on unemployment, that was charged against your unemployment account, and your modification rate would go up and it would cost you a little bit more money. Is that the case now with all these unemployment claims?
No, they're not. These are not being charged, hitting your reserves. The state or the federal government is picking up the tab on this.
Cool.
If it's COVID-19 related.
Now, here's a question that's a pretty good one. So thanks, John. If the business is considered an essential business during this COVID-19 crisis and is still operating, and an employee is in a risk category for COVID-19 age and wants to reduce their disease risk by not coming in to work during this crisis period, will they qualify for unemployment under the CARES Act or any other provisions if they voluntarily chose not to come in? They are not currently exhibiting any symptoms and have not been told to quarantine. The business is not amenable to work at home.
Once again, this is just based upon what I've seen, but my answer would be yes. I believe that they would qualify if they were not working due to a COVID-19 reason. That's kind of the broad statement that we've been giving, and that's how I interpret it. I would be surprised if they didn't.
Okay.
Yes, Jennifer.
Amy, I guess I misunderstood. So in this case, there was no, he has not, but there's not, he just wants to do it on his own because he's concerned because of his age or health risk.
Yeah, so he just wants to stay home himself, be protective, and I can understand that. But the John says the business does not work well. It's hard to work from home in this business. They kind of need to come in. So is he? Yeah. I guess he's asking, is he abandoning his job and wouldn't qualify for unemployment?
And once again, I don't know for sure, but everything that I've read so far, I believe that he would have a case for getting unemployment if he says, I left work due to, I'm an essential employee, I have health issues, therefore, I chose not to work. That's what my crystal ball is telling me right now, based on what I've read and what I've seen. I can't tell you 100%, but I would be surprised if they did not qualify.
Okay. And John has one more little tidbit here. is there a provision in the CARES Act that lets states lower the weeks worked or minimum weekly wage qualifiers during the look-back period that qualifies workers for unemployment compensation?
So he's asking if there's a provision in the CARES Act that's asking if that's allowing the state to lower
the weekly wage qualifiers.
Not that I've read, and we've been doing some research on unemployment in a variety of states due to client work, and I've not seen that language anywhere. Jennifer, have you?
I have not.
Everything, it's been staying exactly the same as it was. The only thing difference is the waiting period and the reasons now that you can get unemployment.
Okay. Tony?
So most of the questions that we have left, Dave, are in reference to the PPP loan or the EIDL. So
yeah, and before you ask, let's qualify that. What we know is today is different than what we knew yesterday. This is a rapidly changing situation, as with unemployment and a lot of things that we're talking about today. So we will do the best we can to answer your questions with what we know. We are kind of in the loop with the SBA. We do receive pretty frequent updates. We also talk to tons of bankers and other entrepreneurs. So we're sifting through a lot of information, and we're happy to share. And again, as we get information, we have your contact info, and we'll certainly push it out to you as we get it. So, all right, Tony, go for it.
okay, the first major question everybody keeps asking is about status of their EIDL loan that they've applied for. How can they check it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there was really no way to check it, and I've had other folks that we've worked with have said on the 800 number for an hour or more, only be told that the call center has no option to check on your status. We've gotten a little bit of information that they're working on that, and that they're going to roll something out here hopefully today or the next day, where you can register and log in and check the status of your EIDL loans. With the PPP, since they are funded through the banks, you can track, you can shoot a email or whatever to your banker, and hopefully they'll respond. But those decisions for the PPP are within the bank itself.
So the major question I've been getting about the 3P is that people are hearing that the SBA is given a 5-day window for you to actually get that funding. Have you heard anything about that? Like, after you've been approved? I haven't heard anything. Have you?
No, not at all. And again, it's when the SBA gives a guarantee to a bank to make a loan, the bank actually uses most of its own underwriting rules and processes to make that loan. So it just kind of depends on your bank. There have been some banks that haven't even begun to process the loans because they're unclear on some of the guidelines that's coming out of the SBA. So I think it's been a week now. This just kind of opened up last Friday. And so most of these kinks are getting worked out. Again, this was a $1 trillion program that was built in a week, so we can expect some hiccups and some problems. But everyone seems to be working very diligently, especially the banks are not in this is a mandate for them to help business owners in the economy. So they're not doing everything they can to deny you. They want you to get this relief for your business. So just keep that in mind and be patient.
Another, I guess, to group in the questions is, I'm self-employed. Usually they own an LLC, and their business has been totally shut down by the pandemic, and they've experienced nothing but dead ends in applications since they have no employees. Do you know of any other relief that they could maybe tap into?
Well, they can apply for the EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And Kevin, maybe you can share that link with everybody on the chat. And also, even though they are an independent contractor or just shut down, and you have a single member LLC, you can apply for the Paycheck Protection Plan at an SBA lender or your bank if they're an SBA lender. So you would qualify for that as well. If you are check with your local county or a city. A lot of these cities are putting together programs that help small entrepreneurs. So here in sunny Louisville, Kentucky, we have a couple programs that the city of Louisville's kind of pushed out for smaller entrepreneurs, and there's also another program where a group of larger businesses have pooled funds for small revolving loans for other type businesses. So there's always something out there. You just need to kind of look for it. And as I always say, in this type of situation, you want to gather as much cash as you can, protect your assets, and live to fight another day. That's what we're doing here.
The question that I've also got is that where can we find the subcontractor application for the 3P that is supposed to open up on Friday? Because April 10th is when subcontractors can come in. I think it's the same application.
Yeah, they pushed out a revised fillable PDF yesterday, I think, but exactly. I do believe it's the same one. And Kevin, maybe you could push that out to everybody. If not, we'll do it to give everybody that a little bit later on with some other additional information on that.
Okay. There's a question here that they said, I submitted my initial application to Chase Bank for the 3P. It says that we just need to wait for someone to contact us. Is there any way to expedite this, or is there anyone to check with?
Well, they would have to check with their banker at Chase. They're driving the ship there, so that's what they'll have to do.
Linda Hawkins says, thanks for the info. Can I how do I know who or where so I don't fall for a scam? I know that when you look on the streamlined process application, there's an OMB number on there that lets you know that that's the legal site to apply for that. So a lot of times if you look for the OMB, which stands for Office of Management and Budgets, do you have anything else to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, I really, I mean, we're seeing a lot of this, and it's really sad that anybody would take advantage of others in a situation like this. This is really a horrible individual, and it's really coming up a lot. So be very careful. If you get an email from somebody that saying that you need to enter your information because you didn't do it right, always check. Maybe IT Dave could weigh in on this also, but always check the email address that it came from. It might say like Linda White or something, but if you look at it, it has some sort of bogus email address. So be super careful. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, Dave?
Yes, I was going to jump. I'm glad you said that. So there's software that you can purchase that will protect you online. And it actually looks for phishing sites, and so it'll tell you. It'll actually integrate with your email as well. So it'll tell you, like when I get emails, even from people that I know that are outside of people that I normally get emails from, it'll tell me that this email came from outside your network or like typical people that you typically interact with, and make sure that this is secure. So it'll tell you that. It'll also tell you when you go to different sites or when you log into different sites, it'll give you a green checkbox to tell you that this site's been verified. And so it'll help you determine whether the site is real or not real. So it's really important. And that's one of the things, like you said, people are horrible. So this is one of the things you really need to make sure that you have those things in place. And again, continue to do those even after this has happened.
We're also we've seen they're sending emails, and they'll have a COVID-19, and then it'll have like an underline, and you click on that, and it's a virus. So again, just be very, very careful. Anything related to that, just if you don't know who it's coming from, don't click on that link.
Yeah.
Because the other thing I said about that earlier was that if you didn't ask for it, then you shouldn't be getting it. So you know what I'm saying? Like, I've even had like my bank call me about something, activity or whatever, and I said, okay, well, let me hang up and call you back on the number that I know is a legitimate number. So that's the best way to do it. Like you said, if it comes to you, call a number to find out that you know is legitimate, and call to find out if that's legitimate. But that software helps, and it's real diligence. I mean, just really making sure that if you didn't ask for it, then you shouldn't be clicking it. I mean, opportunity is out there. There are people out there now that are taking advantage of this in the sense that they know people are desperate for support, they're desperate for money, and some people are just greedy, and they'll put out there, and you click on that, they'll get all your information, and they'll rob you blind.
So IT Dave, I just got another question in for you. So is there a difference between backup services and file synchronization services?
Yes. Yeah. So the difference in the file synchronization, so file synchronization is basically so that you have the same information being saved across platforms. So like if you have a mobile device, you have a desktop, you have a laptop, that those files are synchronized across those platforms. It does back up. It does have to back up your information to share it across those platforms, but it doesn't take the place of a backup service. And as a matter of fact, a backup service should be something that's separate in itself and not connected to any other thing. So that it's, so that you're not, in other words, don't get an all-in-one. Get a backup service that all they do is provide your backups. So
they're asking also, is OneDrive considered to be a file synchronization service, or is it considered to be a backup service?
OneDrive is actually both. It does the file synchronization and it does backup. I honestly can't speak for how secure it is, because that's not really the purpose of it in terms of file backup. It allows you to back up your files, but it's more about making sure that you can work across platforms.
Okay, thank you. So ladies, I have another unemployment insurance question for you. What if you were drawing unemployment pre-COVID-19? Do you still qualify for the $600 for now? Do y'all know anything about that?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm thinking that no, you would not be eligible. The only thing I can think of is if there were now your ability to get work has been inhibited by this virus. If there's going to be some kind of a clause there, but the bottom line is we don't know that yet.
Okay, thank you. And Dave, I have another question. David O.
Wait, I'm SBDC Dave. So if you
okay, SBDC Dave. So can I apply for both of these programs, the PPP and the EIDL? Okay.
Yeah, so that was another thing that changed, because in the beginning you could not. You had to do one or the other, and then they opened it up so you can apply for both. The issue is that you're supposed to use the triple P, the Paycheck Protection Plan, just for payroll and some other specified uses like mortgage interest and rent, so there's some restrictions there to get that forgivable portion of it. The economic injury loan is basically a working capital loan, so you can use it for pretty much anything that you want.
Okay, thank you. And then another question for you, SBDC Dave. Can you send the 3P application to any bank that participates in the program?
Yeah, so as long as they're an SBA lender, and we'll send you guys the link where you can kind of check for a list of banks that are SBA lenders. They're signing up new banks and financial institutions now to kind of expand their reach. So that'll be good. As you might know, that the banks are overwhelmed with applications. So some banks, not all, some are only taking applications from existing customers right now to kind of stem the tide on them. I'm sure that'll change soon, but I would just say be persistent and make a bunch of calls, and you'll find somebody that'll take your application.
Okay, last question is for IT Dave. Are you still there?
I am.
Okay, so what is the best online fax service to use if you work from home but don't have a phone line?
Okay, I would say research that. I mean, I know that online fax services are kind of tricky. And so I would just say research. I can't suggest one, because there's ways you can get around faxing, and probably likely this person that asked the question is like working with a government agency, and they're kind of behind the times, so they're still asking for fax stuff as opposed to scanning it and emailing it. I mean, I don't know why. So there's not really even a lot of fax services out there that you can use, online fax services you can use, but there's a handful. I think at one point Semantic had one, but so you have to kind of search around. I can't recommend one because most people, if you can get that person to not use a fax service, that would be great. Because they're not, it's just not super secure. The online fax services aren't super secure. So as best you can, try to move away from that.
Okay, do we still have time for more questions, Dave? SBDC Dave, or
yeah, we got some time.
Okay, so Phyllis Alcorn says she just wanted to let Diane White know that UPS has a good fax service that she could use as well. Michelle Richards says, are there any restrictions on the $10,000 advance? What can this be used for to be forgiven?
Yeah, that's not restricted. You can't use it for illegal activities, obviously, and you're actually prohibited from using it to expand your business. This grant and / advance, as well as the economic injury loan, is basically a working capital loan to keep your business going. It's not really supposed to be used for expansion projects. So those are the main restrictions.
And Jennifer and Amy, does receiving Social Security prohibit you being able to get unemployment insurance? If you receive Social Security, can you get unemployment insurance?
I know we're like,
I do not know the answer to that.
I think the qualifier would be, did they were they previously employed, and did they lose that supplemental income? So if they were working and had a supplemental income, which I know a lot of retired people do, that there is a possibility, yes. I would file. If you didn't have a job, no, you're not going to get it. But if you had some source of income that was eliminated, I would file.
Thank you. And also, they want to know also, does receiving Social Security also prohibit you from applying or getting any money from the EIDL or the PPP?
Well, you have to be in business prior to January 31st or February 15th. I can't remember which now, but if you weren't in business or doing business prior to that, then no, you can't file for either.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Jennifer and Amy and IT Dave for being a part of our webinar today. You all have been awesome. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to SBDC Dave.
All right. Well, before we go, I think we should answer this one more question, because I've saw it a couple times, and it's about the $10,000 advance. Was it $1,000 per employee? When did that change? And I've seen nothing to that effect. Have you, Tony?
No, I have not. I've not seen anything on it at all.
They do have that language in there that says up to 10,000. That doesn't mean it. But again, some of these processes on how they decide how much you'll get, pretty nebulous. We're not really sure how it all is going to work from the back end, but hopefully something will happen with that too. So this has been a great session today, man. I really learned a lot. I hope everybody out there did as well. So Amy and Jennifer, as always, you guys are sweet. That's why we come to you guys all the time. You're the best. Certainly appreciate it. You're always there for us. And Dave, it was great. You really tweaked my interest. I'm going to do some IT stuff today. I'm in big trouble, I know, and I'll get to work right on that. So thank you guys so much. Thank you again.
Just a quick question. If there was a couple of things we wanted to follow up on, so when we get that information, should we just send it to you to distribute out?
Yeah, we'll push it out, and then we'll share your slides with everybody. Everybody likes that, so we'll do that. And anything else that you want to share with people, we'll certainly give it to everybody for you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.